just because I have taken on the perspective of the host population in addition to the implied perspective of the migrants, doesn't mean that the host population gets off lightly. Nobody tends to get off lightly in my books.
No.
And they're not effectual, as you said, and they're not preparing to hand on their civilization to another generation. It's as if it's never occurred to them that that's part of their job. And by the way, I speak of myself, right? I have not had any children. When I was much younger, when I was much younger, I'm not sure I would say I thought that was something to feel proud of, but I certainly didn't feel ashamed of it. And I thought it was just a perfectly reasonable choice that I should be able to make. I wanted to write books. I was probably right in my assessment that I would write more books, but not necessarily better ones, without having children. And I've really changed my tune on the whole thing. And it's one of the rare instances of my genuinely changing my mind. Now, it doesn't mean that I look back with searing regret on my personal decision, but it was selfish. There are people who embrace the child-free lifestyle and really bristle at that characterization, but that's exactly what it is. And it's ungenerous. And someone gave something to me that I refused to hand on to someone else, right? My parents went through all the aggro of raising me, and I take that and I don't give it to someone else. It's not nice. And when I was early reproductive age, it was an unusual decision. My generation did reproduce itself, right? I'm a boomer. But generations after me have made this almost the norm. It's a completely ordinary thing to decide you don't want any kids, or to put it off so late that you might as well. And when you have an entire civilization that is just refusing to plan ahead, then it's dying, and it's fundamentally irresponsible. Right? And therefore I am part of that. I am part of that irresponsibility. And I thought that was an important ingredient to capture in the novel, because of course one of the reasons that is constantly touted out on the pro-immigration front is we're not having enough kids. So now we have to bring in a bunch of foreigners. So that needed to be part of the mix.
Yeah. I think that's a really brave thing to say. My own reasons for not having kids were a bit more complicated, and I can't talk about them publicly because I was married at that time. But and so it's also my ex-husband's business that I can't really talk about. But I think that despite the fact that I was faced with a lot of specific difficulties, in retrospect, I also think it would have been better if I'd had children, even though, like you, I don't feel any personal agonies about it or personal regrets. But I've become very pro-natalist in my now that it's too late.
I meet other people who are still able to have children, and I do nothing but push them. You have to have kids. You really should do it. It makes me a complete hypocrite, and I'm happy to admit that.